You're listening to the Fertility Docs Uncensored podcast, featuring insight on all things fertility from some of the top-rated doctors around America. Whether you're struggling to conceive or just planning for your future family, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Hi, everyone. We're back with another episode of Fertility Docs Uncensored. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. Abby Eblin from Nashville Fertility Center, and I'm joined by my fabulously fun co-host, Dr. Susan Hudson from Texas Fertility Center.
Hello, everyone.
And Dr. Carrie Bedient from the Fertility Center of Las Vegas. And we have a very special friend today who happens to also be Tennessean. So I feel a special kinship to her. She is Alana Rushing. She is currently the reigning Miss Tennessee for America. And she has had her own fertility journey that she's going to share with us today. But we were talking earlier, and she also has an interesting background in that she was a collegiate volleyball player. I'm really interested to hear more about that. And I mean, that's a job unto itself when you're in college. You know, you go to school, but then that's the second job you have. What was that like?
Yeah. I grew up playing volleyball from the time I was about 8 or 9 years old. So volleyball was really my dream growing up. And I had to choose between pageants and volleyball at the time because it took up so much
too.
Yeah. And I was really, really good. And so I ended up going to play at a private school. It was a Methodist college in Illinois. And that's where I played volleyball. I did that for 3 years. And then I transferred to the University of Kentucky after that.
What was your position?
I was a libero.
Oh, okay. Which is
Very
the
nice.
shorter one on the team, but I'm guessing you're probably not very short though, right?
It's a short, yes, it is a shorter position, but it's more of the person who's the quickest on the team.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, so the libero, she wears the different colored jersey. So when you're watching a volleyball game and they have another jersey, they play back row, and then they come in and out as needed. That's what a libero is.
So you're allowed to move all around and nobody else is.
Right, but they only play the back row, so the middle's come in and out of the front.
So the people can spike on the net.
You're right.
I had a sister and some other family members that played volleyball, but I've forgotten all the details. And it's changed a little bit too, because now it's rally volleyball, right? You can score whether you're serving or not.
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can serve aces now.
When you were doing that in college, how much time did you spend in practice, traveling, and at games every week? I mean, how did you have time to do the whole school part of college?
Yeah. So it was very, very time consuming, and we had study hours, as they would call it back then. And our coach was very, very strict on that because we had a reigning award for the best grades out of all the sports at our school. So we had to really figure out times for that. So they made our schedule based off of the study hours we needed. So if you were a straight A student, you may only need 4 study hours. If you were like more of a B student, you may need 6 hours. And then also we have tutors actively available for us when we were traveling because we were gone half the week during.
Yeah.
And if we were home, we still had 2 to 4 games a night. So we were playing a lot.
So we
So
may
you
talk
have
about
games a night?
Yes.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of times we're tournaments, and in college it's best out of 5 set.
Whoa!
a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and on top of that, we may talk about this in a minute, but I'm really fascinated how you could fit school and volleyball and pageants. I had a couple of friends in college that were involved with Miss Tennessee as well. And like they had all these fittings for things and all these different coaches for this, that, and the other. It was a whole nother job. So was that going on at the same time, or did you sort of give up volleyball and then you went into the pageant circuit?
I really focused on volleyball when I was in college. And then once I got out of college, I went back to focusing on pageant. Because you're right, pageants are full-time.
Yeah. Well, very cool. We're going to talk a little bit more with Alana in just a second. But first, Susan, do we have a question?
We do have a question. So our question for today is, what would be the recommended tests and treatments when sperm analysis results indicate severe oligospermia, so 3 million per milliliter, and transvaginal ultrasound discovered swollen fallopian tubes? Is IVF the only option to get pregnant?
What do you think, Carrie?
Part of it depends on whether the tubes are open or not. There's 2 answers to this question. The first answer is no, IVF may not be the only way to go here, because if there is sperm and if the tubes are open despite being swollen, then technically, yes, you could probably try IUI or ITI, the intratubular insemination. But there's the practical component of this, of even if those tubes are open, even if there are sperm, doing IUI, ITI is highly unlikely to be effective. And so you're not going into this to have fertility treatment. You're going into this to have a baby. And so not spending a whole lot of time messing around with other things that could quite frankly be dangerous with the tubes, especially an ectopic pregnancy or a tubal pregnancy, is the biggest thing that we worry about. I would say you may not technically have to do IVF, but you have to do IVF in order to get where you want to be, because there's a lot of risks playing around with damaged tubes and with a very low sperm count, even with the ITI, even with those other things. Like, those are bridges to IVF. They are not replacements for IVF. And you've got two major issues, which are the two big things that IVF was built for, and both of them are going on. And I think IVF is in your future, my dear. I'm more than willing to be wrong. I'm delighted to be completely wrong in favor of having a baby, but statistically, you're in a tough spot here, and I think IVF's in your future. What do you think, Abby? Susan?
Well, I think if your tubes are swollen on ultrasound, that's really concerning, because generally we don't see swollen tubes unless they're really swollen and really blocked. So that suggests to me that your tubes are blocked. If your tubes are that blocked and damaged, they're probably not going to function well. And like Carrie said, that puts you at really high risk for tubal pregnancy, even if someone tries to go in and open them up. So that in of itself is an indication for IVF. Sometimes that can be treated. And generally, if you saw someone or if you saw one of us, probably we would recommend you to reproductive urologist. And it depends on what the cause of it is. Sometimes we definitely can see much improvement in the sperm count. So that's a question mark depending on what happens there. But for the most part, I think probably, like Carrie said, just because of your tubes alone, probably IVF is in your future.
I would agree. The fact that we can see your fallopian tubes on ultrasound means they're really big. Even most hydrosalpinx that we see on HSG, we don't see those on ultrasound. So they are quite large, and they are probably blocked. And we've all seen historically somebody who went and had surgery on their tubes, and they may have gotten pregnant, and hopefully it ends up being in the right place, but you're at a much higher risk of that ectopic pregnancy. And that, combined with the severe male factor, I think it's really something that you need to focus on, that being your goal. It's not impossible. I've had people get pregnant with similar situations, but it's not common.
And all of the additional testing that people think about for very low sperm counts, you certainly can do. But if you know that you're headed towards IVF, the utility of it and how it's going to change things, the equation and the balance changes. And so, yes, you can go ahead and do the hormone panels and the DNA fragmentation and all of those other things. Consider starting additional medications, but none of those things are going to change the fact that the tubes are damaged. And so it may be more worth your time and effort and energy to put what you were going to direct towards the sperm into just the whole IVF process in general.
Exciting news from Fertility Docs Uncensored. Our long-awaited book, The IVF Blueprint, is now available on Amazon. Go now to pre-order your copy to learn everything you need to know about IVF, egg freezing, and embryo transfer. Did you know that you can cram decades of experience, science, and heartfelt advice into a book, and then the whole thing hinges on what happens in week 1? Yep, week 1 is basically the prom queen election of publishing. So if you've ever thought, I should check out the IVF Blueprint by the Fertility Docs Uncensored's crew, now is your moment to shine. Buying it early tells bookstores, hey, stock this. It tells publishers, people care about this. And most importantly, it helps get real information into the hands of people staring down fertility treatments with more questions than answers. The book's called The IVF Blueprint. It's for folks considering IVF, already in the thick of it, or just trying to figure out what the heck their doctor is talking about. Help us help more people, and maybe confuse a few algorithms while you're at it.
All right, so now we are going to spend some time with Alana Rushing, talking a little bit about her fertility journey. And Alana, I think you alluded to the fact that you did a shared cycle with someone else. Tell us a little bit about kind of what made you decide to do that and what's involved with that process.
Yeah, so I personally, I'm not struggling with infertility at this moment. Everything has been fine, but I am 28 and I don't have a partner yet. So I have one child of my own, and I really wanted to hopefully give them a sibling someday. And so I just wanted to freeze my eggs. And Dr. Amy out of California is someone we work with at my agency a lot, and she offers a shared program where I get to keep half of my eggs The other half are donated to a family, and then they pay for the cost of the entire procedure. And then they actually pay for the storage for 5 years for me as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
When you were going through that, because you had been an egg donor previously, is that right?
Wow.
You've seen the whole gamut. So how did you get into the egg donor world, especially being a college athlete and being in pageants and doing like all of the things that you have done, which each of them are a career in and of themselves. And
Yeah.
then you put them all together. And how did you find that? How did you get into that part of this world?
Right. So, Happy Beginnings is actually in the hometown where I'm from. So that's how I heard about it. And then when I was in college, I had heard about it in high school too, but I just didn't do it then. I was obviously too young. But then when I
Oh,
got
wow.
to
You heard about it in high school even, huh?
yeah, so it was a small town where I'm from. I'm from Southern Illinois, which is not very big. So this agency has been around for a long time, and a lot of my friends actually are egg donors too, just because it's very word of mouth. And I wanted to really make a difference. And I just felt like I seen so many people struggling with infertility, and this was my way to give back. And at the same time, it was going to put me through school. And so that's really why I chose to do it. And then later on, it kind of led to my own fertility journey.
So how many cycles did you end up doing?
I've done 4 or 5. I
Oh,
think
wow.
5 with my egg shared cycle.
Okay.
These cycles anonymous cycles or were they known cycles? How was the format that you participated in?
Yeah, so all of the cycles at Happy Beginnings are anonymous unless they specifically ask. But then when I did my shared cycle, it was very different. And I'm a lot older now than back then when I was donating. And then I had a child of my own. So I was very open to the shared cycle. I do know them now. They actually met my daughter later too. So like it's very open. They're pregnant now and I'm really excited for them.
What type of counseling did you go through before starting your cycle and how did that affect your journey?
I had to do a psych eval, and that was just going over just to see if I really had any issues and things like that. But it was totally fine. It was about like an hour session, maybe.
And did they do that both for the anonymous cycles and the shared cycles?
They did, yes. We did have a counseling session with my shared cycle where I was on a Zoom call with the parents, and we went through a few things just to see how we felt about it and how we wanted our relationship to be going forward after a child was born, things like that. I think we were just very on both sides very open, but they wanted to really leave it up to the child later in life.
Mhm.
So I may not necessarily have a relationship with the baby in the next year or two, but maybe later down the line, if that's what the child wants, then I'm totally open to that. And they are too.
So to that end, how do you feel about the because you said I think you did 3 other anonymous cycles, right? And so I'm guessing you probably don't know how many potential babies came from that, and I'm just curious as to how they canceled you and what your plans are if you get, contacted by a child when they get older, when they're adults themselves.
I did do the donor sibling registry. That
Oh,
was one,
okay.
I think almost at least 2 or 3 of my cycles asked about, and I was fine to do that for medical information and things like that.
Oh,
But I was
good.
so young then, so I didn't really know what to expect, and if I could go back and change it, I would have probably done known just because of the experience I had with my shared cycle.
Uh-huh.
Back
Well,
then,
good.
it was like everything seemed to be anonymous, and that was just what you were supposed to do.
Yeah. So for people out there that have received anonymous eggs, from your perspective, it sounds like you think it would be a very positive experience to be able to connect with kids in the future that you created through your eggs.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's just the way you approach it. It's not necessarily I don't look at it like that's my child, but I would look at it I was like, if I ever had to introduce this future child to my own child, I would probably do it as more like a cousin type of thing,
Yeah.
not necessarily a sibling, and I think the parents that I donated for were on the same page with me in that sense too.
Big news for the Bay Area. Reproductive Science Center of the San Francisco Bay Area is expanding. A brand new state-of-the-art IVF lab is coming soon to Menlo Park, RSC's second in the region. With advanced fertility treatments, a high success rate, and flexible financial options, RSC helps hopeful parents take control of their family building journey. Visit rscbayarea.com to schedule your consultation. RSC is proud to lead the way in West Coast fertility care. So your family reacted to your journey as an egg donor?
They've been very supportive. My sister was actually an egg donor as well, and my stepsister, and she had a really positive experience as well. And hers were all anonymous too.
Oh, wow.
Do you have any outcome information on the anonymous cycles you do? Because a lot of times donors don't get a lot of that information, in part because they're all of the stuff that comes out of it, the number of embryos happens well after you are done with the process and if there's any transfers. But do you know much about your egg donation cycles?
I know I do. I know a pregnancy occurred in all of them, and there was a twin pregnancy in one of them.
Oh,
And I actually seen a picture of those babies, the twins, and they were so cute.
aw.
But the
Awesome.
other ones I haven't seen photos of.
You said that your kiddo is 3, correct?
She is.
How are you planning on introducing all of this to her when she's of an appropriate age to say, hey, if you do any of these ancestry.com or whatever types of cycles, she's going to potentially find other information out there. How are you going to go about that set of discussions?
I already have, and actually just in a child's way, just because she sees what I do every day. I help people have children every single day. So she's always like, Mom, can I talk to the clients and things like that? Just really kidding. But she just wants to be helpful too. And so I kind of tried to introduce her to my work world as my egg donor world as well. And
Yeah.
told her I've helped people have babies. And so I could tell her the same way I do my work now is I was just helping someone have a baby in another way. And I'm in the process of publishing my first egg donor conceived book for
Nice.
egg donor received kids, and she's seen the illustrations. And so she's been my hands-on person as far as showing her what it would look like. And I think for a 3-year-old, she understands it for the best she can at 3. It may be another conversation later down the line with ancestry and things like that, because I don't think she quite knows what that is yet.
So tell us what you do in your day-to-day life.
As far as work
To
goes,
work. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm the managing director at Happy Beginning, so I do all the matching as far as helping parents find a donor or a surrogate now, and then I manage the day to day with our agency as well.
Oh, that's great.
So, how do you counsel intended parents who are looking for a donor and they're trying to decide, what do I look for? Who do I choose? I've got these 2 or 3. Which one do I actually pick? How do you go through those discussions with people?
So I really break it down to what is most important to them. Sometimes it's looks, sometimes it's education, sometimes it's someone now that they would just want to have an open relationship with. Like I had my shared cycle. So I really narrow down what's most important to them if they have a top 2 or 3 donors that they can't decide from. And normally they're able to pick based off of that because there are a lot of amazing donors. We have a database of 500 plus donors. So if
Wow.
they're looking for something specific, then they're able to break it down based off of things that are normally most important to them, which is, I think, if they look like the intended mother or education is what I see the most often.
How do you counsel people on the education component of that? Because I have a ton of patients who are very highly educated. They want that in their donor. Also, donors a lot of the time are, somewhere between 21, 25, 26 years old, and they don't have the same credentials that these intended parents do because they're not old enough yet. They're still finding their way in the world. Education is expensive. It's time consuming. There's so many aspects of it. How do you talk to people about wanting those sets of requirements or wishes that are inherently difficult to get by working with a 23-year-old?
Right. Yeah. I try to explain to them. A lot of them still are in college, but maybe they're pursuing a degree that, for
Mhm.
instance, maybe one was the parent was a business degree, and then so they wanted someone in the business world. So maybe they're still pursuing that. Sometimes we do an anonymous Zoom call with the donor and the
Oh,
parent,
that's interesting.
or a call, depends on what parties are both comfortable with, and we're able to talk through that. What are your future plans? Where are you at school now? It seems like if they're not in a top 50 school and education is important to them at that time, a lot of parents are very comfortable with that.
That's interesting.
They only wanted someone in at Harvard, and we were able to find that, but it was a needle in a haystack, and I did explain that to them, and it's gonna be a harder match. Not everyone goes to Harvard, but they were
Yeah.
ready to pay a higher compensation to find that.
Wow. What do
Interesting.
you find are the biggest challenges that intended parents have when they're looking for an egg donor? We talked a little bit about it, but what is the thing that you think just they're like, just I can't decide between this and this?
I think when I see things, it's really when they have 2 donors side by side that have almost the exact same credentials, and they really have to narrow down something so small, and then that's where one of the other donors doesn't get selected. I mean, it may be hair color, it may be eye color, maybe the shape of the eyes. Sometimes I've really had to break down facial features and things like that. Maybe one's Irish and one is has Italian in them. So that, and then we go back and we go through their family background. Like, what does that look like on their end? And normally they want someone who looks like the intended mother. It's not necessarily the intended father, unless it's his father coming to me.
Yeah.
So I really speak with the intended mother the most about like actual characteristics, but that's what I would say
Interesting.
most challenging at times.
With being Miss Tennessee and going on to your next pageant, is your interest in fertility preservation, those types of things, something that you're going to be sharing with your platform?
Yeah, so I titled my platform as Fertility Compass because we work with domestic clients, but also international clients. I wanted to continue to advocate for infertility awareness. I feel like it's such a niche industry that just so many people don't know about, but so many people are going through it. And I feel like so many people are just alone in this journey, and I want them to know I've went through my own journey, so to speak. I work with people who go through it, and one of my ways of wanting to give back is once I publish my book, I want to donate 500 copies to egg donor conceived children.
Wow, that's awesome.
They need resources too, and there's just really not many out there right now. And then if that goes well, I'll probably do one for surrogacy conceived as well.
What's the name of your book?
It's called Ocean Miracles. We work with Barbados Fertility Center a lot. I actually have been to that clinic and I've been to Barbados several times. And so I feel like that was my eye-opening way of entering the egg donor world and the fertility world in general. So I think that's why I chose that title.
Really?
Do you see a lot of fertility awareness among your other pageant participants? And I know that there's different age groups that each pageant is going towards. Is this something that's increasing in awareness among that demographic of that age of women? Or is it something that you find you're having to explain everything about every time you meet somebody new because they don't really know much about it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I feel like I do have to really explain what I do in depth. But when I was living in Texas and I competed in a pageant, I actually did experience one of my good friends now. She went through IVF. I have a friend now in the fertility world that is going through IVF as well, and she didn't know where to start. I actually just referred her to Nashville Fertility Center as, a
Thank
clinic.
you.
That's where I did my outside monitoring for my
Okay.
cycle. And so that's the closest to her, and she didn't want to travel very far. It's just really navigating as I meet people, but you do have to explain a lot because they just don't know where to start, especially
Yeah.
when you're going through it. Endometriosis, for instance, that's something I feel like a lot of girls my age are going through. My friend, she's just like, I don't know what to do. They just said I have endometriosis. Now what? It's very, very challenging.
What would your words of advice for someone who's thinking about egg freezing, whether they're in their later 20s like you are, or they may be in their 30s, maybe even older than that? What words of advice is somebody who has helped people who did not egg freeze through your donations, and as somebody who has gone through egg freezing, what are some words of advice you would offer to those people who the wheels are just starting to turn?
Honestly, I would say do it. I do it with no hesitation. After doing it myself and helping others, why would I not help myself too? Because in the long run, if I don't need these eggs, I get to help someone else and I get to donate them to another family. So maybe if my own family doesn't need it someday, another family will. So I feel like there's really no bad way to go about it. And doing it in your late 20s when you're healthy and nothing is wrong with you is, I feel like, just the best way. And then you're not struggling and going through all these things if you do find a partner later in life, because the reality is a lot of people are finding partners later in life, focusing on their careers and their education. And that is why fertility is somewhat coming to people in their 30s and 40s. I see it every day, unfortunately.
Alana, what would you say to people who are really scared of making the next step? Maybe they've come for a consult, but they're afraid because of the nuts and bolts. Like, am I going to feel crazy on the medicine? How many days away from work am I going to have to take? And what am I going to feel like after it's over with? What would your words of wisdom be about that?
I think when you find a doctor that supports you and supports the mission that you're trying to do, I think it makes it so much easier. I feel like Dr. Amy, for my certain thing, she just was really there for me and she was making sure I was supported. She knew I was a prior donor. She knew everything about my life. And I was like, I don't want to be there for so long, but I had to bring my kid. And she was just very accommodating to everything I was going through. So I feel like when you find that doctor that's really there for you and they're there for the right reasons to help you have a successful journey, it just takes so much stress off of you.
What would be your advice in finding a doctor?
I think definitely do your research on what you're looking for. I know not all clinics do shared cycles, and that's specifically what I was looking for. I didn't want to put a lot of finances into it. So a shared cycle was great for me because I was able to do it and basically come out money free, but also have these eggs already frozen for me. But if you don't want to do a shared cycle, then you'd probably have to look at the financials of it and see kind of cost comparisons. But I still think looking to someone that you're comfortable with is a big part of it as well.
Any last words of wisdom?
When you set your mind to something, going after your dreams is something that's so important. And for me, egg freezing was something that was so important on me. I'm 28 and I feel that it's like a big burden was taken off of me by freezing my eggs. Now I can find a partner later in life and it's okay.
And you come out to Las Vegas to compete very shortly here, right?
Yes, in just 4 weeks, I will be there.
That's exciting.
Well, I hope that your competition goes well and that you win absolutely everything and you get an even bigger and more glorious crown than the one you have, which is pretty spectacular.
It is pretty spectacular.
I hope you have just a fabulous experience.
Thank you so much.
As a little girl from Texas, I can tell you every year, I mean, I have to say, this is something that kind of makes me sad about the fact that we all stream stuff nowadays. Every year I watch the Miss Texas pageant and, whatever the national pageant was, Miss USA or Miss America and that type of thing. And that was a neat part of my childhood growing up and watching this. So I was super excited about having you on today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I will send my link so you guys can stream it and watch it if you guys would
That'd
like.
be great. That'd be awesome. Well, very good. To our audience, thanks for listening and subscribe to Apple Podcasts to have next Tuesday's episode pop up automatically for you. Also, be sure to subscribe to YouTube. That really helps us spread reliable information, and that way we can help as many people as possible.
Visit fertilitydocsuncensored.com to submit questions and sign up for our email list. Keep an eye out for our book being released September 23rd, The IVF Blueprint. Check out our Instagram and TikTok for quick hints of fertility tips between weekly episodes.
And as always, this podcast is intended for entertainment and is not a substitute for medical advice from your own physician. Subscribe, sign up for emails, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.